Hello everyone and welcome to RcHelpDotCom. I'm Tony and today we're going to be building a clone. There's a few things you need to do to them and there's some things that you need to replace right off the bat. That is exactly what I'm going to show you guys how to do in this video. You guys have seen the build videos, you have seen the unboxing videos, you've seen all those, and let me tell you, it's the exact same for every single helicopter. You're going to pull out a frame that is almost already completely assembled. You've got your tail fins, you've got your anti-rotation, main gear set, your bag of goodies, your tail boom, supports, and your skids. And then, of course, your head. This is how they are all going to come from HobbyKing. EXI is built even more than this. The tail boom's already in it, everything's already placed in there. You just have to tear it all apart because none of these have any thread lock in them. I just wish they would send these kind of like they do the Align kits where everything's blown apart except the head and you get to put everything together and thread lock everything and all that. But they don't. You have to take them apart. So be it, you know. With having to take these apart, you know where the parts are going to go. As you can see, I never said that there was an instruction manual. You have to have somewhere to start. By the way, if you want to download the instruction manual for any of the helicopters you've ever seen me build or fly, they're on the forum in the download section under the articles tab. We've got all the parts here. These are the parts that come with the helicopter. When you make your order, you need to go ahead and get your servos and things like that. And let me show you the servos, the motor, and the ESC that I'm going to use in this helicopter. Right here are the servos and the motor and the ESC that I'm going to use whenever I build this helicopter. I've never used any of these parts before. These servos, they've gotten decent reviews on, you know, how well they work on a cyclic. This servo is supposed to be really fast and it can handle up to 7.4 volts in voltage. I'm going to give it a shot, see what it does. I've never tried them. Let's try it out. This motor is supposed to be a monster. It's supposed to be 550 watts, which is why I went with a 45 amp ESC. Lee on the forum, my moderator, he has actually put one of these ESCs into a Warp 360. If he trusts this ESC in a $400 airframe, then I'm going to trust it with my little $50 airframe. There's no reason not to trust it. I've got the card on the way. It'll be here probably in about a week or two. But I had to get a 45 amp ESC to handle the power of this motor according to what they say it's going to pull. Now I'm going to put a watt meter on this and we're going to find out just how much power this actually does pull. Now this is a flybarless helicopter. I do need a 3-axis gyro and I actually have a couple 3GX gyros sitting around. I replaced the one in the 600 Nitro with a Beast X AR7200BX and I've got some of these laying around. So we're going to put the Align 3GX in this helicopter. Now this frame is actually the Pro version 2, which means it has the extended battery mount and it also has your little knockouts to where you can take your 3GX and mount it upside down within the frame. However, the bottom plate is not cut out for the 3GX and that plate is not included in this kit. If you look at the pictures of this on HobbyKing's website, you're not going to see this sticking out of the end, the extended battery tray, and you're not going to see these holes. This is kind of halfway between the version 1, the regular Pro, and the version 2. Now like I said before, in this video I'm going to show you how to build this helicopter and build it to the standards that are almost aligned. The last thing you want is your first spool up and something come flying off of that helicopter. It's just that right there, you're going to have it in the back of your mind what's going to happen next. So guys, I'm going to show you exactly what I'm going to be replacing on this helicopter before you ever start building. Once this helicopter is built, it's going to have a lot of Align products already on it. So what do you say we take a look at what we're going to be putting on it? Here is all the parts that we're going to be using to replace the crap parts that are on the clone. This is going to make this helicopter a lot more safe than what it is in the beginning. So let's walk through here and I'll kind of explain why I'm going to use what I'm going to use. I may not use all of these, but I might. Now right here I've got an 11 and a 12 tooth pinion. These are helical pinions because I want this helicopter to be quiet. I want it to be as quiet as possible, and the helical cut gears, not only are the gears bigger, each individual gear is actually bigger and can withstand more torque, but the helical cut is a lot quieter when it goes around and it starts slapping the teeth together. So I've got 2 gears to try to figure out my head speed. This right here is the tail section, basically the center section where the blade grips bolt in. It also comes with the plastic links and it comes with the little brass washers. The reason I got this is these are notorious for being packed with thread lock. If they use thread lock in one spot, it's going to be right here. So do yourself a favor, get this part kit. It does say for the regular T-Rex 450, but it does work with the Pro. The most important part to replace on this helicopter, and this is by far, hands down, the required part you have to replace. That is the tail gears. Do not ever fly with the tail gears that they give you. These tail gears are the black gears. They've got some sort of coating on them, or they're made of a different plastic or something. It makes them harder, basically, to put it in layman's terms. So these are less likely to strip out. And for, what were they, about 12 bucks for a dual package of them, you can't really go wrong. So 24 bucks, and you're going to keep from stripping gears when your tail blade hits a blade of grass. Very cheap insurance to put towards your helicopter. Now right here, this is actually the support and the bearing for the torque tube. Speaking of torque tube, this is an aligned tail boom, and it does come with 2 of the torque tubes. The reason I got this is the ones that the actual helicopter comes with are notoriously warped, and you can get a vibration from that shaft. So I got the good bearing with a good support, the good tail boom, and the good torque tube shafts. Knock it out of the park, don't have to worry about it. Now the next part are these right here. These are head dampers, and you notice I got one for a 450, one for the 450 Pro, and as you can see, it does say DFC on it. Now the dampers that come with the helicopter are an extremely soft rubber. You can have all kinds of problems with the rubber that it comes with. This rubber is actually harder. It'll help with a lot of your blade tracking issues. It'll help with a lot of wobbling issues and things like that. These are the DFC links, and as you can see, I've actually already opened it because I put these in the HK450 GT. These are pretty much solid plastic. They're hard, they have no give to them, and it's a direct flight control, which is what DFC stands for. It basically makes everything completely rigid. I'm going to determine which one of these two I'm going to use whenever we build the head on the helicopter. This right here is the auto rotation gear. It's just the standard auto rotation gear, and the reason I want this, these have the real steep cooling fins, and I noticed on my HK450 GT that with these coupled with the fins on the main gear actually keeps my motor cooler. So I wanted to run these, plus it's aligned. You know that they're not going to be warped. These also have a metal insert on the auto gear where you're going to put that sleeve. The one that comes with the actual helicopter is pressed into plastic, and if you notice, whenever you tighten it down too tight, you end up warping it, and it's not good. So do yourself a favor, get you an aligned auto rotation gear. This right here is the 121 tooth helical cut main gear. It works on the Pro, it works on the SEV2, it works on pretty much all of the aligned 450 helicopters. They use the exact same gear. Helical cut to match both the pinion gears. We know it's going to work and it's not going to be warped. Right here we have linkages, and the reason I got these is, again, because of my 450 GT, the SEV2, the threads on them are so fine and they're so small that they didn't grab the links. And I got another package of links as well. These are also aligned, obviously. So I'm going to be replacing every single link on that head with a line. Now I'm going to lose my half turn capability on my links when I go to adjust the head and have to go to a full turn, but I'm willing to take that chance for quality products. You know that these links are not going to slip off of these shafts. I mean, it's just not going to happen, not with a little 450. We are going to be using the clone one-way bearing. There's nothing wrong with the clone one-way bearing as long as all the little needle bearings are in there. Right here, we've got the feathering shafts for the head, and these are for the Pro. The feathering shafts out of the SEV2 will not work. They're not long enough. The Pro is actually just a little bit longer. So got those. And then finally we got just white landing skids. The reason I got these, I had to make a $25 order to get my free shipping, so we'll throw in a set of $6 skids. So guys, these are all the parts that you're going to be replacing, and let me tell you, there's not really much here. You know, a lot of people get really scared when they think a line, and then it's going to be really expensive. Later on in this video, we're going to tally all this up, and I'm going to tell you how much we have in the helicopter. It's actually probably going to surprise you. It's not that much. I'm going to get started on the build, and we'll see you guys in just a second. Alright, so the first piece to replace is obviously on the frame, and it's these gears right here. Now, like I said, these things are notorious for for braking, and I can actually see some of the teeth that are already bad on these gears, and I just now took this plate off. Get this taken apart here, and I'll show you a close-up. Alright, if you look at those teeth as I rotate them around, they're going to change from straight to getting a little concaved area on them. As you can see, right there, furthest away from the camera, the teeth are kind of coming up over the flat spot, but if I come around, they no longer come up. That right there is enough to strip these gears out on a spool up without actually hitting anything. The other side of the gear actually looks pretty good. Now, all the dirt that's on there is what actually come with the kit. So what we got to do is we need to press this one out, because we're going to have to reuse this sleeve right here. Just press it out, press the new one in, and then completely replace this one, put the bearings on the other shaft. Now I know some of you guys are saying, wait, I don't have a press to press these out. Don't worry, take a flat bladed screwdriver, stick it up in there, and then just kind of torque on it. Like I say, we're not going to be using these gears, so we're not worried about saving the gears. But be careful of that bearing. You don't want to damage the bearing, because we will have to reuse that. It'll take some force, but it will come out. Alright, as you can see, we got the old gear out. Right here's the bearing set. Now all we got to do is get our new gears out. We'll go ahead and set that package aside, because we're done with that one. Now all you have to do is take this gear and press it into the bearing. That is a tight fit. Might take a little persuasion, but once it's in there, you know it spins nice and free. It's ready to be installed. Take it, slide it back into here. Once that's in there, now we need to take our bearings off this other shaft. Make sure to look and see if there's any shims on it. There's one shim right there that come off the umbrella side. So we'll put that shim back on in the exact same spot that it come off. Put it in there, slide it in, and then check your gear mesh. If your gear mesh is too tight, then we need to move that shim to where we can lower this down. And that is actually a little tight. So we'll go ahead, swap this shim around, stick it back in there, and now it spins nice and free. Bolt that all back together, and your front block is done. Alright, on this tail, with the new gear installed and with it actually seated properly, I had to kind of sand the front area of this block so that the tail could the gears could actually spin free. There's still a little bit of a tight spot in there, and I've still got to get that out, but it's not something that I'm real worried about. It's almost like there's a piece of dust in there that I just can't see. But I will be getting that out. I mean, I'm not going to fly it with that tight spot in there. But we're going to go from the first set of gears to the second set of gears. We're going to replace the gears on the tail. Alright, there's your locking pin, tail. Got a couple washers here. Basically little black washers that your bolts go into, and then you've got your tail blades. Those two washers will actually go on these two bolts. Just in case you didn't know, I'm already here, might as well explain it. Alright, so the first thing we've got to do is we have to check this. I can feel a little bit of grit in there. Maybe this tail isn't quite the way it should be. In any matter, we have the replacement links and the replacement centerpiece, so that's not a big deal. Alright, so we've got to get all of this taken apart. Unfortunately, I use a Phillips screw on there. I really don't like Phillips screws because you can't really get a good bite on them to get them out. That is one of them they used a lot of thread lock on. Just be careful not to strip it out. I will be looking for a replacement for that little screw. Alright, now we've got to take the tail off, so we need to take that little grub screw out. That grub screw had no thread lock on it. Alright, twist that, comes right off. Now we can check the bearings. First, what I'm going to do is check the gear play, and it's actually really close on how much play should be in that gear. That's good. Alright, now whenever you pull this apart, pull off the side of the umbrella gear. That way you can just slide this shaft right out. Of course, you've got to thread lock all of this, but one thing I didn't see, there's also a little bitty shim in there. I think that came off of right down there. Take these last two out. There's a little washer on there. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. Pull this out. Make sure there's not a washer on the other side. That's just your shim so that you can slide this back and forth, get your gear mesh right. Now we need to take off this other side so that we can remove that front gear. Alright, got that side off. Now this one is just a bearing, a sleeve, and a bearing. So now we just got to press all of this off. And that in itself can take a while. Whatever you do, don't stab yourself in the hand like I just about did. Alright, there's one bearing. There's a sleeve. And the final bearing. Alright, now get our other package. Open it up. Take out one tail shaft. One of the other gear, whatever it's called. We'll set those aside. Those are for if and when we crash. Slide the bearing onto here, and again, it's going to be really, really tight. Alright, so the way we're going to slide this on is we're going to take our sleeve, put it down in there, then we're going to take our gear, put it in there, and then just kind of press it in. So I'm going to press this in, and I'll be right back. Alright, once you get your gear in there, and your bearing, or both of them are pressed onto the shaft, what we need to do is we need to check our gear mesh again. Now if you notice, I didn't put the little shim in there. I want to check it first. We got quite a bit of in play. With it pushed all the way down, it's still spinning pretty free. It's got a pretty good gear mesh to it. I think I can get it a little bit tighter. Alright, so we'll take that back apart, take this out, and give it a little bit more persuasion. Alright, lock those into their little holes. Check your play again. Now it's got even more play. Now what we'll do is we'll take our shim, put it on the end that gives us the tightest gear mesh, put all this back together, and once again try it again. The one thing to remember when dealing with clones, guys, is things are not going to be perfect. I mean, the holes are going to be drilled oblong, or something's going to be off. You just have to figure out what that is. Alright, I've still got a little bit of play in that. That could just be because I haven't bolted this thing down, but it's not a lot of play. If I pull it all the way this way, which should actually make the gear tight, I feel no grinding of the gears. So now we'll hold that bottom gear, check our gear mesh, and there is just, I mean, an absolute fine amount of play. It's perfect, which is surprising. Quite honestly. Alright, so give her some spins. Make sure you don't feel no tight spots like I feel in this block over here. A little bit of thread lock on all the bolts. This part is done. Now we need to check these bearings in here. I can already feel that there's a little bit of grit. It's not enough grit to actually mess with the tail servo. As long as you have a decent servo, you're not using something with like 2 ounce inches or something. But I still want to get that out. If I have to, I'll replace this entire section with an aligned tail unit. They're $18. This bearing here feels pretty good. One of their selling points is the new aluminum slider. I don't know how much that really makes a difference, but they push it pretty good. So we need to get these tail blades off and check all the bearings and see if we can use that aligned tail block that's right here in the center, whatever it's called. Just as I suspected, the screw in here wasn't even tight, and the reason it wasn't tight is because when you tighten it up, this thing starts to get real hard to turn, which tells me if there is a shim in here, it needs to be removed. I had to remove it on the 450 GT or the SCV2. Alright, so now that we got that screw loose, go ahead, flip it around. We'll just bust this one loose as well, and then we'll take our linkages off. Alright, now once we got all this apart, be careful of all these little brass washers. This one doesn't actually want to come out. There it goes. The other one just fell out. That tells me that one was just a little too tight. Alright, this one actually feels really good. Check this other one. As you can see, that's not bad itself. Alright, so we need to check the bearings themselves. The bearing right there feels pretty decent. Pull that out, check this bearing. Now I can feel a little bit of grit in this one, but that's not a deal breaker saying that we can't do anything with it. Alright, so now we need to take out this other bearing and any shims that may be in there. And would you looky there, we got a shim. Alright, take a look down inside, make sure there's nothing else, and then do the same thing to the other grip. That one had a shim as well. Now we need to check these bearings. These are going to be your small inner race bearings. That one feels pretty decent. This one feels pretty good as well. Alright, excellent. Open up our package here. Make sure not to get any of that confused with any of this. When you're building the tail back up, what you want to do is you want to do a dry fit. You want to put all this stuff together and make sure everything is spinning free. If it doesn't spin free, remove a shim, move a shim to a different location, and then try it again. That's exactly what we're going to do by installing the back bearing. Slide this on here. We're just going to install the bolt with the bearing, and we're going to see if we have any sort of play. Alright, put that on. Slide the bearing up into the grip, and then we'll go ahead and screw it down. Alright, got it down pretty tight. If you need to tighten it any more, like I've said in my other videos, just take a tail shaft and stick it through the hub, and then just torque it down a little bit. Now I can feel a little bit of grit in there, but the grit that I feel, I think will actually work itself out. That actually feels really good. Alright, that's some good news right there. No shim, and it works perfect. So once we got all that done, all you have to do, a little bit of thread lock. Remember, watch my thread lock video to know how much thread lock to put on these bolts. You don't want thread lock in your bearings. Put it all back together, and this little section is done. Alright, now we got the tail grips back on. Everything is nice and free. This one, like I say, it's got a little bit of grip, but that's in the bearing. That's not actually in it pinching itself. So that's not a big deal. Now what we need to do is we need to get our tail and put the grips back on to the slider. Now when you do this, make sure that the little sleeves, the little brass sleeves, make sure that they are actually longer than this plastic piece is wide. The reason that is, when you tighten that screw down, you want it to pinch the brass, not the plastic. That's what allows it to move. It's just a regular old bushing. Same thing is inside here, and these are actually decently loose. I mean, I don't have any problem with that. We're ready to basically put this entire thing back together. Now, one thing to remember when you take these blade grips apart is the linkage that goes onto the blade grips is going to go on the leading edge of the blade, not the trailing edge. Your biggest ally in all this is patience. I mean, I'm talking a lot of patience. Test and test again. And what you want to do is you just want to make sure that the links are moving in both of them and you don't feel any binding at all. I don't think I've ever felt a clone tail that smooth. Alright, now we just need to put our tail back together, and again, a whole bunch of thread lock. When I say a whole bunch, I mean do every single bolt, not cake it on there to where it's oozing out underneath the head. If at any time you ever see any oil on these bolts, if they're shiny, take your little isopropyl alcohol and clean them off. Otherwise your thread lock is not going to work. Once everything's in, give it a spin. Make sure you don't feel any of them teeth dragging. Check your gear mesh again. Everything feels great. The bearings, I did not clean out any of the grease that's in the bearings and replace it with oil, mainly because I can't find my bearing oil. So they're not going to spin real free. There's still going to be that grease in there, but it's safe. Trust me guys, it is safe. Alright, now what we can do is we can open up our tail boom package. We can take out one of the torque tubes and then the tail boom itself. Once your bearing glued on there nice and securely, it's about halfway, you know, close enough for government work. We'll put a little bit of oil. No, this is not bearing oil, this is actually bushing oil. Now what we'll do, it doesn't matter which way it goes, but if I put it in there like this, my OCD is going to be kicking my butt, so I've got to put it in like that. Alright, you may have to feed it back and forth a few times, but trust me, it will come out the other end and everything is golden. It's always nice to have a red rag around, wipe off the excess oil. Now Remember, the align is going to look just like this, so we need to put this back piece right back shaw. There's a hole. Alright, slide that in. Find our pin. Open it up. Stick the pin in the hole until it sits flush. Get your stabilizer. We'll go ahead and put it on. The finish on these is extremely crappy. Remove both of your screws. Slide your bolts through the hole. And then I'll take my thread lock and put just a little dab right at the very end of them, and then wipe off the excess. Now we can slide the bolts into the holes and tighten them up. Make sure when you're doing this there's no gap between the carbon fiber and that aluminum. If there is, that means that button in there is not seated. That is a must. Alright, you don't want to go gorilla tight on these, but you want them, Alright, slide your torque tube shaft up in there. Try to get it in that gear. Alright, now that it's in there, we can spin it around. Excellent. We'll take our shaft, put it up into the front block. Should be a locating pin in there. Might have to move them around a little bit. And there's our tail. We got our new gears. We got our aligned tail boom with our hollow aligned torque tube shaft. So much better than these solid ones. Everything's spinning nice and smooth. That is the way the tail should be on a clone helicopter. Guys, I'm telling you, whenever you buy this, you're gonna spend a little bit more money, but you're gonna get good gears put in this tail, and you know they're not gonna strip out. I showed you guys that one that was already stripped from the factory. The tail is pretty much done. You guys know how to put the linkage back on. You know how to put these on. I haven't put them on yet, but it's as simple as pulling that back out and putting them on. So, tail's done. We're going to move on to other parts of the build. Alright, as you can see, I went ahead and installed the motor because I wanted to check the gear mesh as well as the gear mesh back here. One place that people don't check gear mesh, or they usually don't, is this gear here to the auto gear. I had this gear actually pushed all the way down with this gear pushed all the way back, and this had absolutely no play between this gear and the auto gear. Well, I pushed it up and I got this gear mesh perfect, and now I've got a little bit of play in that gear, perfect gear mesh. So this part is all done. I was thinking what I was going to have to do was take out these screws and then take a file and actually file these down and pull the entire main shaft forward. Luckily, I was able to not have to do that, and I really didn't want to. But now we got a perfect gear mesh on the motor, we got the perfect gear mesh on the tail. Everything spins nice and free, which with no blades on it, it doesn't really look like that. But this is only temporarily installed. We've still got to work on the head. So now that I know that the motor and everything is going to fit, the gear mesh is right, now we can take this head off and start working on the head. I'm going to leave the main shaft in, and I'm just pulling the entire head off with the swash and everything else. So remember, we have to take out every one of these balls on the swash, as well as the 4 balls here, and these 2 screws, and the screws going into the block. We got to take everything out and thread lock it. You cannot miss thread locking anything. I don't know what they look for when they go to thread lock these things from the factory, but it seems like they thread lock the one things that you have to take apart. You know, you can't throw these things in the air. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get my Allen driver, we're going to take this head off, and then we're going to start rebuilding it. Alright, no white flaky stuff on that bolt means there is no thread lock on the bolt going through the head, which means this could actually slip out. Double check them, guys. I think there was, however, some thread lock on the main shaft. Very interesting. Alright, go ahead and remove all of your links. Remember, your swash plate to servo links are all going to be the same size on a Pro helicopter. And also remember, we're replacing all of those. These they had no pop when taking them off. There was no real grab. Alright, check your swash plate. This one actually spins decently free. Remember, it's still got grease in it. It doesn't have oil. So it's going to be a little tight, but that one's not bad at all. And then grab it and make sure there's no play in that bearing. Alright, the swash plate's good. All we got to do is take all the balls off of it. We're going to do that here in just a second. For right now, I want to get this head blown apart and actually check it out. Once we have the head out, what we can do is we can get a feel for how those thrust bearings and the radial bearings and all that are. This one, it's not too bad. There's no play side to side. I don't feel any grinding in here. There is a little bit of grittiness to them, but it's not bad at all. One thing I forgot to show in the beginning of the video was these. These are aligned thrust bearings. They work in the Pro, they work in the 450 SCV2, they work in almost all the 450s, and we're going to be putting these in because they are just so much smoother. We're also going to be installing the feathering shaft because we have it. Alright, we'll go ahead, take these bolts out, and then take the blade grips off. For those of you that may be new and watching this video, you have to use 2 Allen drivers to take the feathering shaft out because the feathering shaft will do nothing but spin. Go ahead, break that loose. That was not tight at all. It's taking off this right grip. Go ahead and pull it out. Radial bearing fell out with it. Now we can take that Allen driver out. We can grab a hold of the head and then just pull every bit of this through the head. Make sure not to lose that little shim right there on the edge of it. Alright guys, this is why you always take these heads apart. This is what was inside it once I removed it from the main block. If you look, I mean, this is just unbelievably hard stuff. I don't know what it is. The dampers are really soft. Just, I mean, absolute horrible quality. So what we're going to do, we're going to replace every bit of this, so I'm not really all that worried about it. Always take this stuff apart. Alright, well, because of that crap that's on there, I'm not going to be able to slide it through the bearings. So I'm going to have to do what I say never to do. Grab this thing with a pair of pliers, grab my Allen driver, try not to lose what's inside that grip, and then take it off. With that stuff that's on this feathering shaft's trash anyway. Now we can pull this blade grip off, pull the shim and the radial bearing off of there as well. Now we have this feathering shaft, which is, well, crap. So we'll set that over here in the crap pile. Now what we want to do is we want to pull everything out, and like I say, we're replacing every bit of it. The new feathering shafts come with new bolts and new washers, and then you've got your 3 washers here. The only thing we're going to be reusing are these radial bearings right here. Alright, so now we need to get this damper out of this side of the head. That's as simple as putting your Allen wrench in and then just kind of pushing it out. And as you can see, it's actually 4 dampers that are in this head. To me, I really don't like having this kind of damper. I would rather have these right here, which these are going to be harder than these. These are almost like O-rings that you would put in a car to seal off the AC system. These, they're not quite as soft, but they still provide a little bit of cushion for you. Alright, so we'll get our rubber dampers out here. And like I say, this rubber is still harder than what was in it before. Stick those dampers in there. Take our little sleeve and make sure they're pushed all the way in. Grab our second one and put it in. So we know we're replacing the bolt, the thrust washers, and the little spacer because they've got new spacers in here. So we can take all of that and put it over here in our crap pile. Now, need to get all the stuff out of the bag. Remember, these are better quality bolts as well. Still got 1 feathering shaft just for when we crash. Now what we're going to do, open up our thrust washers, thrust bearing, whatever you want to call it. Another good reason to use the aligned thrust washers is there's no guesswork. As you can see, the one on the right says out and the one on the left says in. That's exactly how they go. The left one that says in will go closest to the center of the feathering shaft, whereas the other one will be on the outside and the last to install before you install your bolt. It's cheap insurance, guys. Put that on there. Find our thrust bearing. Find the one that says out. Put that on. Then the thrust bearing. For mine, I'm going to use a little bit of bushing oil. It's a thick oil. Got that one oiled up. Make sure this part says in. They bounce pretty good. Little dab of thread lock. Put the bolt down in there. grab your bearing and just check it and make sure it's spinning nice and free. That one's spinning pretty good. There are little shims in here, so you don't want to lose those, and you do want to reuse them so that you can set any sort of backlash. What we're going to do, I wanted to make sure that only the radial bearing was installed, so we'll take one of these shims. We've already got our thrust bearing pack right here. Then you'll put your shim on, then you'll put your radial bearing, and then we'll slide that up into the blade grip. It should slide pretty easily. Put our bearing on here, then we'll put our little spacer, and then we get to slide it up into the head. You will more than likely need your Allen driver so that you can get it up in there. Once in there, just verify that it's running smooth, everything's aligned. It better run smooth. Remember, on a flybarless helicopter, the ball is always going to be on the leading edge. For a flybar helicopter, it's going to be on the trailing edge. Remember that, because these things, you can't flip them around. You'll have to actually take the feathering shaft apart, then flip them around, then put it all back together again. So we've got our screw, then we've got our washer, then we've got our outside, our bearing, little bit of oil. If you put too much on these, it'll just sling it out. Then the inside thrust bearing, and that thrust bearing's ready to go. Go ahead, slide that bearing down into the grip. Then we'll take our shim, drop it down in there, and make sure it seats. Now we can take our thrust bearing, wiggle it up in there. Alright, once you have your thrust bearing up in there, take our radial bearing, stick it down in there. We'll take our small spacer, put it over the feathering shaft, and screw it all together. Alright, right there it's seated. We'll check the other side, make sure it's seated. It's seated now. It's a little tight, but I think that'll wear in. Go ahead, push on those dampers, make sure they're in there all the way. That feels really good. It is a little bit tight though, so what we're going to do is we're going to remove that shim that we put in there. Take that apart, take out your thrust washer. The new dampers did come with new shims. The new shims appear to be just a hair bit thicker, so there's no way we can use them. And we get to put it all back together, but not before removing the other side. Alright, with all those removed, check it one more time, but this time you need to check for any sort of end play. This one has none. I don't feel the bearing binding up. It's great. Now just remove your bolts, thread lock them, put them back in. If you see any oil on any of these bolts in here, clean them with alcohol and then put it all back together with thread lock. Last thing you want is this thing to come flying apart. So I did go ahead, remove both of the stock shims, and I put in the shims that come with the dampers. And it is a little tight, but those dampers are going to wear in. Eventually it's going to press everything together, and then these are going to loosen up. Right now they will not fall under their own weight, but there is absolutely no binding, there's no grittiness, no nothing. They're smooth, and there's no reason why the servos can't overpower this. So now, once you have thread lock on both of your bolts, get both your Allen drivers, and then tighten up your feathering shaft. Once your feathering shaft is tight, make sure to check your grips again. They should not have changed. I'm telling you, this is about as smooth as you're going to get a head. A little tight, gives it some room to wear in. Once those thrust bearings start wearing in, the dampers start wearing in, this is going to be an awesome head. Now we get to work on these. They don't fall under their own weight. This one tries to. This one's just a little tight, but in all honesty, use your best judgment. I mean, if you hear this click, 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 or feel a click, click, whenever you're moving this arm, then it's bad. This one's still smooth, so it gives us room for it to run in. Excellent. Alright, that's done. Now we need to double check, take out all these balls, and thread lock every one of them. Alright, and once you're done thread locking everything, double check it, make sure the swash spins free. Now we're ready to go back together with this thing. If you have ball link pliers, this would be an awesome time to use it, because this kind of hurts. Ow. Alright, so now that we got the head and the tail completely done, we put our motor in, we know our gear mesh is correct, we know the tail gear mesh is correct, both on the umbrella gears and on the gear that rides on the auto gear. We know all that's done. Now it's time to install the servos. Now before you install the servos into a pro frame like this, where the servo arms are way up in here, there's no way to access them. You can just barely get to them if you come in like this, but it's not ideal. What you need to do is you need to power these servos, get them to center with no sub trim, no trim. Try to get those servo arms as perfect to 90 degrees as you possibly can to the links, then install them. Don't forget, thread lock your motor in before you install these front servos, because you will not be able to get down to those bolts once you have the servos in. So what I've got to do is I've got to get my ESC, I got to put the Dean's plug on it, I use Dean's plugs, and then I got to put my bullet connectors down here. Then I've got to get my 3GX out, bind everything up. I'm going to use one satellite on this. I'm not going to use two satellites. I know a lot of people are running one, and I want to prove that it will work with one satellite. I'm going to put one satellite on it. I'm going to bind it to my DX8. We're going to center all the servos. We're going to get the arms put on there correctly, and then we're going to move on. One thing I did notice is on this tail servo, this is a 500 size servo, or classified as a mini servo, these are micros, is it doesn't fit inside that hole. And the width is fine, the length is fine, it's these corners. We're going to have to take those corners and make them a little bit more sharp. Now when you go and start making sharp corners, that starts adding a fatigue point to the metal, and it's more likely going to break right there in that corner. So you want to keep a rounded edge on it, but we need enough to get this servo in. If you start seeing any fatigue at all on this aluminum, do not hesitate to buy another one. It's like less than 10 bucks, and you can get that, the anti-rotation bracket, which is also your gyro mount, and you know it's not going to fail on you. So guys, watch this piece of aluminum. I've seen a lot of people crash their helicopter because of this one piece of aluminum. They want to put some bling on it, and it's costing people their helicopters. So I'm going to center up the servos. I'm also going to center this one. I'm going to file this to where this servo can mount in here. Then I'm going to mount all the servos, and we're going to proceed on. Alright, well, as you can see, we've got some progress made on the helicopter. Got two of the servos put in. I did have to take out the elevator servo because I took both of the panels off, one panel off at a time, thread locked all the bolts in it that go into metal, which is every single one of them except these front ones here and this one right here. Thread locked every single one of them, both sides. Everything is looking real good. Be real careful on these bolts, guys, going into this aluminum. It is not anywhere near good aluminum. It is very weak, and you can strip it out very easy. But as you can see, I got the rudder servo in there. These right here are the Corona DS929HVs. They're not real fast, but they've got some pretty good strength to them. They're metal gear and they're digital. This one is supposed to be really quick at 7.4 volts. Unfortunately, out of this ESC, I can only get 6 volts. So, I mean, even at 6 volts, it's still working really well. So I don't think I'll have a problem with this thing all hunting and everything else in the air. I don't quite know about the cyclic servos because, like I say, they are a little bit slow, and you just don't know until you get it in the air. The helicopter, as you see it, is almost complete, but it's not. All I did, I put these on here just to prove a point. I haven't thread locked them, and I'm going to show you guys something. Be sure you guys check this. Those of you that have built these clones before, you already know what I'm fixing to do. All you got to do is twist and pull, and the ends come right off. I don't know what kind of glue they use. I'm thinking it's more like an oil than a glue, because it's crap. It doesn't hold it. Now I know that this is basically made to hold the tail up. It will work as long as you got it pressed in there tight enough. Do yourself a favor, guys. Get you some alcohol, clean these ends off, and take you some CA, put it on there, and then stick it in back into the hole. Now do this end first. Then put some CA on this end. Get your bolt out of there. Once you CA this end, you're going to have about 3 seconds to put it up there and push it and get it nice and level. Once it's on there, you're not going to be able to remove it without cracking the carbon fiber rod. Be careful, guys. These things are clones. Things are going to break, things are going to fail. Do it the right way. Glue these on. Make sure you go through, replace the gears with the line, because these gears are pure crap. It's going to cause your tail to go out. The thing's going to start pirouetting like crazy, and if you're a fairly new pilot, you're not going to know to hit that throttle hold to get the helicopter back under control. Guys, safety first. Everything I'm doing in this video is about safety. these helicopters are not safe from the factory, and you need to go in and do a little bit of work to them to make them safe. So guys, I'm going to glue these up. I'm going to thread lock all 4 of those bolts, and then we're going to move on with this build. Alright, so now that we got everything installed, I got this massive Yep 45 sitting on the side of it, because it will not go under here where it's supposed to go. This I probably will not keep on this helicopter, which means I'm going to have to change my motor as well. The reason I had to get this is because of that motor. The motor pulls, what is it, 500 watts, 550 watts, somewhere in there. A little bit more than the Align ESC can handle. I got the 3GX mounted here. This tail servo is actually decently quick. I haven't had a chance to put it in the air yet, and I do plan on doing that. However, the cyclic servos, those Coronas, I don't know, they seem just a little slow. That's as fast as they go right there. So, you know, maybe it'll work. If not, they weren't that much. So it's not a big deal if I have to replace them. If I do replace them, I'm going to end up going with some Align DS 415s. And I might, if I go that route, I may just go ahead and put a DS 525 on the tail of this helicopter, just to make sure everything is perfect. Safety is of utmost importance when dealing with these clone helicopters. Things are going to fly apart. Things are going to happen. You have to catch them in the beginning before it completely wrecks your entire helicopter. Start out with the gears and the tail. That is like the most important thing you can replace on these things, because as I have said many times, these gears, they're not good. They are extremely soft. They strip out way too easy, and as I showed you, they're stripped from the factory. I mean, what kind of quality control is that? Buy yourself some Align gears, save yourself the trouble of crashing and having to repair everything, and, you know, spending money on feathering shafts and main shafts and blades and all that, and just go ahead and get a new set of gears. The main gear is not, it's not a necessity item. You don't have to replace it. The stock main gear is probably okay. I know the one-way is okay because we're still using the one-way. The only downside to the one-way we have in this is, if you look, there's a little bit of up and down play with the main gear. But I have checked it, double checked it, and triple checked it, and there is absolutely nothing that's going to interfere with. If it comes up, it does not rub the frame. It doesn't do anything. So there's absolutely no reason why that issue right there should have to be repaired. Now later on down the road, when I wear this one-way out, I will be replacing this one-way with an Align one-way. So then all the issues will be taken care of. The wiring is a huge mess. I mean, these wires here are absolutely enormous. I am going to run some stuff in here to help protect it. The battery is actually, get all the crap out of the way, the battery's coming all the way through over here and then up into the battery. And then obviously from there, the canopy will go on. And there you can see it with a canopy on it. The canopy does fit, you know, it's not interfering with any of this. There is still decent clearance with the main gear. This is not the canopy that's going to stay on here. This is actually a canopy that I modified, as you can tell by these, to fit on my SCV2. Yes, you can take that long canopy off and put a Pro Canopy on it. All you have to do is re-drill the holes. If you can get one that you have to drill the holes in, that would be preferable, because then you wouldn't have extra holes in it. But guys, the entire point of this video is take your time on setting these things up. Replace the parts that you know are going to fail. It's not going to cost you that much money. So speaking of money, what do you say we tally all this up and find out just how much we have in this helicopter? The helicopter kit itself is $65.37. For a flybarless helicopter kit, that's not bad. The Yep ESC was $23.27. That was from the US warehouse. The motor that I'm running was $21.11. The cyclic servos, the Coronas, those were $7.20 a piece, which equals out to $21.60 for all 3 of them. The tail servo was only $9.62, and I tell you, it's pretty quick for a $10 servo. All of that, which I ordered all that from HobbyKing here in the US, come out to $140.97. Not too shabby. Now for the Align parts, the tail gears and all that. The main gear that I replaced, I paid $7.99 for. that come with 3 main gears. The auto rotation gear was $11.98, and that was for each one of them. I'm guessing because there's that piece of aluminum in the middle of it. There's only 1 auto gear in each package, so that piece was actually pretty expensive, but you can use the stock gears. You do not have to replace those. Just make sure you get the right size pinion for your motor. Speaking of the pinion, the aligned aluminum pinion that I put on here, the helical pinion, was $4.99. The front torque tube and the rear torque tube set were $12.99 a piece, and they came with 2 gears. So you had 2 of the gears in here, 2 of the gears that go up through here, and then 2 shafts and 2 of the gears in here. It gives me a backup for 13 bucks. It's just cheap insurance, guys. The torque tube shafts and the tail boom, which it came with 2 torque tube shafts, those were $9.99. The torque tube bearing that goes inside here is $6.99, and you shouldn't have to replace that again if you can get it broke off the old torque tube, if you happen to crash and bend it up. The thrust bearings inside the head were $4.99. The plastic ball link ends, those were $3.89. The one-way shaft, and if you remember, it was that sleeve, because I had to have one for this. Again, if you're not using the main gear, you won't use this part. But the one-way shaft was $3.99. The linkage rods, these stainless steel rods right here, those were $3.99. And then the landing skids, just so I can make a $25 order, because this was in 2 separate orders, was $6.99. All of the aligned parts came out to be $91.73. Now, like I said, you don't have to do the main gear and the auto gear. You don't have to do the landing skids. You could probably get away with not doing these links, and that's going to save you a substantial amount of money. Everything tallied together, the HK order plus the A-Main Hobbies order, comes out to $232.70. That is not bad for a helicopter minus the gyro. It's not bad at all. So you got the $232.70, add a $60 ZYX gyro, and that comes out to $292.70. So you're still under 300 bucks. However, you can find these 3GX gyros all day long for $75, which takes our total to $307.70. So sitting right here with extra gears, extra torque tubes, extra main gears, we've got 307 bucks in this helicopter. That is not a bad price, guys. And I know that with all of the stuff that we replaced on this, this is going to be a safe helicopter to put in the air. Once we get the 3GX gyro dialed in, this is going to be one of the safest helicopters out there. It's not going to be like them clones that you never know when it's going to come flying apart. Take your time, build them right, replace the parts that need to be replaced right off the bat. If you want to purchase this kit, the servos, the YEP ESC, the motor, if you want to purchase any of that from HobbyKing, I've put links down in the description, so all you guys have to do is click on it and you can go ahead and purchase it. This is a decent helicopter kit. For being a clone, and for me being somebody that really does not like clones, this was actually not a bad kit. So guys, if you don't have the money to go out and get you a $450 Align, by all means, go out and build you one just like this. If you guys have any questions, come over the forum and post up. We are there to help. I look forward to seeing you guys on the forum, and we'll see you guys in the next video.